Welcome back to the Lounge with Larz podcast. Today, I have an incredible guest whose journey is all about transformation and purpose. Jesse started his career as a firefighter for the city of Gilbert, dedicating his life to serving others. Along the way, he discovered his true passion, helping businesses grow and scale. Beyond business, faith and family plays a huge role in his life. Today, we're going to take a deep dive into his journey. Welcome to the podcast, Jesse.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks for having me.
Heck
That
yeah.
was an awesome intro. Thank you.
I try hard. I think I worked on it a couple times.
Yeah, thank you. Before we get started, I think even just you reading that, people often say, oh, how'd you get into this? And I do have a story about that, but I think the underlying purpose really a lot of times came from people ask if it was philanthropic in nature, and it wasn't supposed to be, but in the beginning that's how it was. Is I just started helping my friends out. But when you're reading that, it made me think of, I loved my time as a firefighter. People always ask, is it just too much, or the sleep or the calls or whatever? And I'm like, no, it's none of those things. It's a great career if you have one job, or if your second job, a lot of guys have like services based stuff, maybe a pool cleaning or something. And like, you're not going to be all hours of the night skimming pools at night. There's some normal hours, and marketing is just 24/7 in a lot of ways, and holidays and all that stuff. And so anyway, so first with that, like I didn't leave because of any of those things. It was just, I was burning the candle at both ends. But the purpose actually came from, I realized there's a little bit, not morbid, but like I was doing CPR on 90-year-old people that had cancer and didn't have a good like survivability and things like that. Yeah. And so it was a little bit of, we'd always do our best job in all of those things. However, I was like, just by helping these businesses, I've transformed legacies, transformed marriages, transformed lives, transformed even just like belief. And like, I really, just last night I was filling out this form for something, and it was like, what's your like secret superpower? And I was like, I feel like I'm more of an emotional architect, because a lot of times the biggest limiting belief is in people in themselves, even
100%.
For really successful people. Reading that, I was just thinking, man, with that transition and the purpose, like it was actually like, man, I'm saving more lives doing this now than of 15,000 calls that I ran in those 15 years.
You did 15 years. Yeah, so I have 24 years. I'm in my last year. Yeah, it's been a long haul, Jesse.
And I wasn't in Phoenix, which is a totally different.
Yeah, and it is different. I actually had my choice of Chandler or Phoenix. And even though I love Big Red, right? Mm-hmm. The city of Phoenix, it has a lot of growing pains right now. I'll just put it that way. And looking back, and obviously we can't rewind the hands of time and have do-overs, but I grew up in Chandler. I was born and raised in Chandler, and I started off as a Chandler Fire Explorer. Did you really?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was a cadet.
No way.
Yeah, for a long time there.
Had no idea. Coming out of high school, I didn't know what I was going to do. I was a wrestler, and I'm like, man, I don't see a scholarship coming my way. I had little scholarships here and there, but I wanted that top 10, Pac-10 scholarship come my way from ASU, and it just never happened. I was depressed, and I was like, gosh, what am I going to do? And my mom actually found it, the Explorers, and she's, hey, I got to show you something. I came home one day, and I was once again not finding my purpose, and she's, hey, I think I found something for you. And she opened this newspaper article, and it was a Chandler Fire Explorer.
Yeah.
And I went down there it was like a Tuesday night, and I was hooked, man. I was hooked.
It's awesome. And they ran an awesome program. You know, that was something that I had visited a lot of them too. And it was just very, not only professional, but even as young kids coming in, they weren't treating you like young kids. They were treating you like future firefighters.
100%. Yeah. When I saw like the first firefighter in his blue uniform, I don't know about you, but I was like so captivated. I was like, oh my gosh, this guy's my hero. Is that how you felt?
I grew up around the fire department. My dad was a firefighter in Mesa for 37 years.
That's right.
But I still felt that when I went to Chandler in that way, because the way that they just tee up the process. And right now you're in this gray shirt, and then when you get hired, you'll be a red shirt. And then once you get your blue shirt, like it's this big deal. And so,
big time.
So seeing these guys come in that both went through the program, but also that They're like, I am in it, you know? And so, yeah, a lot of people think that I wouldn't have that experience, and I for sure did.
Awesome. What age were you when you got hired?
I was 19.
19. Okay. Yeah.
It was actually, it was my first day of the academy, or the intern academy, was my birthday, my 19th birthday. And
No
I was
way.
like, I was just terrified that, like, they're gonna know. I don't know how, but it's gonna be on my form or something. It wasn't really a thing then. But in my mind, I was like just sweating bullets all day.
I think, yeah, I wasn't a good student. Actually, I wasn't a good student just in school in general. I was in resource, and I had a lot of struggles in my life where I just wasn't keeping up with the rest of the kids as far as academically. And so I struggled when I started testing for the fire department. I couldn't pass the reading comprehension and the math, and it took me a while. And just like anything in life, if you stay consistent and you pursue your goals, you're going to accomplish it. And that's what happened to me. I just buckled down and made sure I understood what I was reading. I focused on my math quite a bit. And it was interesting. Out of, I think, 7,000 candidates, I can't remember the exact number, but in Phoenix, I came out number one. It took me a couple times.
Wow.
But
Dude, that's awesome.
Yeah, it was pretty crazy. And then I feel like I'm tooting my own horn, which I am. But in Chandler, I came out number one too in their intern academy and stuff. And so I had the pick of what city to go to. And I knew I worked really hard, and I dedicated myself every night just to studying the packets and working really hard, running and all the physical fitness. And yeah, I earned it for sure. But yeah, it took me about 3 years. I think I got hired at 21. So getting
still
hired
really young. Yeah.
Getting hired at 19 is, what a feeling, man. That's crazy cool.
Yeah, and it's funny you say that, and this is something that I've actually talked about quite a bit, is looking at the testing and all those things. Like, I was at a point where there was a pretty big hiring boom around that time. And so I had the luxury of what took you 3 years. I probably did the same amount of tests and same amount of interviews and all those things, 16, 17, 18 departments in that year. Because when I was 18, I actually tried to get into the test at a city right before my birthday, because I was like, if I can just get in on the test, then I will be able to. And I'm not kidding you, I've always looked 12. You put a hat on me, then I look even younger. And I don't know how I dressed as grown up as possible on the dead giveaway, and they singled me out of 3,500 people. I never saw them ask another person. I was there a long time.
That's crazy.
And they were like, dude, do you have your license or ID? And I should have just said no. Not that I'm promoting lying. I was thinking in my head, like, if I just get in the doors and take the test, then I'll get through all the other things and it'll be fine. And so I remember that was like a pivotal moment. I was like, I can't start yet. And so anyways, with all that though, I think about this a lot of really, it was that repetition, because I was a relatively good student. I was very motivated, different podcast, but like I graduated, I was almost completely done with high school when I was 15. I graduated right as I was turning 16.
Wow. And
skipped a couple of grades and did all these things not because I was smart, because I was smart enough to cheat the system. I was like, I want out of here. I had older sisters, and so I was like, I just want to start my life in a way that I wasn't in a hurry to grow up. I just was not, I didn't want to stay and be a kid and do the things that people were doing that were worthless. They weren't purposeful. Anyways, I went to Apache Junction High School. There was a pretty good mix of motivated versus unmotivated. One of my teachers, I remember, went to Harvard. He was my high school English teacher, and he graduated from AJ. He could have went anywhere in the world, especially Harvard's Ivy League, but even then, it was just harder to get in, harder to succeed, harder to stand out. He was a young white kid from AJ. And the thing I remember is I wanted to come back here because no one told me when I was going here that you could do anything. No one told me that you don't have to be stuck here. Now, I'm not stuck here. I'm choosing to be here. I could go anywhere, and I'm saying I'll be here. In that moment, I had decided already to fast track some stuff before I got to high school. Went to summer school, like morning session, evening session, first session, second session, and had a 30-minute break for lunch. I went to Mesa High. It was its own experience. And so anyways, all this to say, though, it wasn't that I was so smart. It was that I did feel smart enough to cheat the system. But at the same time, I was a good student. I did have good grades. And yet those first 16 to 19 tests, I didn't pass in a percentile that was going to get me into an intern academy.
Really?
And so then it just started hitting. Didn't change anything that I knew of. I had taken the same test and everywhere. And part of it, I think, was also faith's been important to me. And I feel like it was a little bit of God's protection of the places I didn't go and seeing the future, because the places that were the big brothers in the valley, their cities were declining. As I was fortunate to get to work in Gilbert, where it's been skyrocketing. It's continuing to skyrocket.
Great city.
And obviously the calls are a lot more elevated type of calls than a lot of other cities that have some different economic differences.
I should have linked up with you a long time ago in high school. I was very slow. I had to focus a lot harder than all my other friends. And I barely passed high school. But what I learned and what I'm still learning, Jesse, is I was never stupid. I wasn't motivated.
Yeah.
And when I found something that I was passionate about, I go all in. And I'm successful. And so I think that's what happens in life is sometimes we feel like, oh, we're not getting the best grades or we're not hitting these metrics in school or in class. And we find like after high school or even after college, that just wasn't your purpose. And then you start leaning into
Let me ask you this though. How many people do you know that got a college degree and they're working in that college degree? Because I would say that's equal to what we're talking about. It's just the idea of, I was a comms major or I was a marketing major or whatever. Like no one that I know has a degree in what they are doing.
Especially now. It's like this age of, the college is just, I don't know. I think it feels like it's faltering a little bit just because we on this new tech craze and everything is just so one-sided with social media and you're just not using all those skill sets that a college diploma could give you now. I think the world's changing, and even with being a firefighter, we always hear, oh, you guys just put wet stuff on the red stuff. And it's true, but there's a lot of things that you need to understand. But I think it was like 10 years into my career. Like
just on that, if you're not a smart firefighter, potentially now like you're a dead firefighter. I mean, there's a lot more risks involved, not just from health in general and cancer and all the things, but also the danger of car accidents and freeway traffic and distracted drivers and then the way houses are built and all the synthetics.
So dangerous.
We brush over that, but truly like you do have to be really tactical and smart at the lowest level to the highest level.
For sure. Was there a day that you found yourself like having a different itch? Like you're like, oh, this is great. I'm helping my community. I'm giving back. I'm doing everything that I wanted to do. What was that thing that maybe you felt in your heart that started pulling you in a different direction from the fire department? Yeah.
Ironically, in what we're talking about, which is funny, is it was a different thing than I'm doing now. But I believe that it's always the really good thing is hiding behind that thing that you need to just get out of the way. So if you're thinking about doing something, just do that thing because it's probably not the thing you're going to land on. It's the thing that's behind that you don't know yet.
Yeah.
And I think that originally I had always knew that I wanted to be a firefighter and probably something else. I thought about going to medical school. It had always been on the back burner of something that I was interested in. A guy that worked out of my dad's fire station when he was younger was studying for medical school and now is a medical director for half of the valley and has been a firefighter or a medical doctor and a medical director for a long time. So he didn't even know it, but that was like one of the inspiration stories. And I'm actually friends with that guy, so I should probably tell him that. But it originally started out when our kids were little and Courtney and I were married. And she was in medical device sales, and we'd go to all these orthodontic graduations, and they'd say these speeches and all this stuff about how hard it was, but also like how rewarding it is and all these things. And they couldn't have got here without all these things. And so originally it was appealing. And I was like, you know what? I've always talked about this. Courtney, what do you think? I think we should do this. And she's like, yeah, I'm all in. I think you should do that. And I don't want you stuck at the fire station forever either.
Yeah.
And so I'm the type of person that I want what I say to have weight, so much to a fault that I also it'll prevent me from saying something because I don't ever want it to not happen. And so I silently, in my room at the fire station and at home and everything else, I started going back to school for another undergraduate degree with a degree in biochemistry, like biomedicine, like minor and some other things. And so I was just studying all the biologies and chemistries and everything else. And I'm going to apply for medical school at some point. And in my off days, I had already been working at Phoenix Children's Hospital in the peds ICU. And one of the doctors there was like, hey, you should come to India with us. We're going to do like a medical trip and go treat a bunch of orphans. And we'll see about 1,000 kids a day. And because of your firefighting background, you'll be able to help me a lot more than other people, because a lot of the nurses and physicians that he would bring were not like ER or frontline people. They were
Makes
more
sense.
so like clinical by nature. And so out in the field or emergency situations was the furthest thing from their jam. And so he's like, hey, you'll be able to help me a lot and have a lot more scope of what you can do. And so I was like, yeah, I'll go with you. And I went with a team of nurses. It was awesome. And there were some emergency situations where it really allowed me and my skill set and the calm demeanor in a situation when everybody else is freaking out, which firefighters are good at. It just allowed me to stand out in a way. Like, you should come to my medical school. I'm like, what do you mean my medical school? And I was like, first you told me to work at my hospital. And he was like, yeah, I was one of the founding people of Phoenix Children's a long time ago.
No way. Oh my
and
gosh.
then it's not my medical school, because I'm on the board.
Got some clout.
Yeah, he's got some clout, and
Yeah.
he's nice and humble and cool. And I'm on the board of the U of A College of Medicine Phoenix. And the reason why we started the Phoenix campus was because, just like firefighting, we realized that you can teach anybody how to be a firefighter. You can teach anybody how to be a doctor. You cannot teach anybody how to be good with people and to use their brain.
Yes.
Like, period.
So
and
true.
so they realized that they were graduating this ever-growing list of scientists primarily, and medical schools clout a lot of that. We're graduating the best scientists in the world. And those are needed because those are the people that are curing cancer and doing all those things. But also the middle version of great surgeons and cardiologists and all of the things for the hands-on professions in the medical industry. In a lot of ways, we're losing credibility because of one reason. And it was the highest volume of lawsuits and medical malpractice was due to the doctor was not nice.
Wow.
And Phoenix actually has a saying that chief Brune is nice.
Be nice. That's it.
Everything else follows, you know.
100%.
So anyway, so all that to say, I worked in the peds ICU, and then I started studying for medical school. I graduated with my degree, my undergraduate. I took the MCAT, and I was in the application process. Didn't score as high as I would have liked, but I was in the application process, and we went out to dinner with some friends. And he was the VP of a large company, and like publicly traded company, and I would say the top 100 in the world. And he's like, yeah, I'm just having this problem. I'm losing tons of money. We're talking like $60 to $100 million a year just in this one thing. And I was like, hey, I know a guy that does this other stuff that like you guys could connect, and I think that could actually really start. You don't have this you don't have a training issue. Like, I think you have a customer service issue. And so it's all around firefighters, and we know customer service, we know being nice, we know all those things. And so I'm using some of the things I'm learning in school and business operations management and all these things we're just on a date night. And really long story short, I was like, I'll help you introduce this other guy, and like vice versa. And the more I talked to them, it led to, you're telling me all these things I should do. Can you just do that, Jesse? I was like, I don't want to be a part of this. And he offered me like 50%. And I was like, I'll do it for 5 because I really don't want to be a part of this. I will help you this first year and get out.
Yeah.
And so I worked like my entire first year for $5,000 or something crazy. But what's funny is right after that, not the first year, but right after that, hey, we need you on both sides. And I was like, okay, I'll help. And I stayed up till almost midnight. Now I can say this because I'm not there anymore, but stayed up till almost midnight at the kitchen table at the fire station, writing this like 50-page contract for this 5-year deal with a Fortune 100 company.
And what were you doing? What was it for? And
it was for a video program that was an internal marketing campaign just to get people to care why they're showing up to work. Because the reality is it was basically this like safety brand anthem. And the reality is that a number one of their losses in their loss prevention department was due to injuries and careless preventable acts. So it's like slips, trips, and falls, and back sprains, and driving a forklift through a pallet of product or stuff that. So it's all of these things that are totally preventable. And so we created this campaign to bring the VP's vision to life of just helping people just remember why they came to work. And it's not so that they could get a paycheck. It was so that they could play with their dogs on the weekend, go out with their kids, go running or hiking or whatever. So we really created this amazing campaign. And the very first year, $30 million in just getting people to care. So truly, we believe this in so many ways. We made the VP the hero because in return, that helps us. And we're going to be, in our realm, I always say this as a team, we always want to help the people we're helping be the number one phone call in their network. Because if that's the case, then we're going to be their number one phone call as well, because we've helped them do that time and time again. Right. But back to that story though, I was up till midnight writing this like up to 5-year contract at the fire station.
And you're already
running calls and all the things. And it's Thanksgiving night. So like our families had all just left. So like late, and we were cleaning till forever, like all the stuff. And so I'm up writing this contract, and procurement, nothing happens fast. And by 6 a.m. the next day at the fire station, they're like, hey, I think you guys won like the 5-year contract or whatever it was. And I was like, okay, theoretically, this is not what actually happened, but theoretically, I'm like, I could make what a doctor's making now, or I could keep going to medical school or all those things. If I get accepted, I'm in the process, could graduate with $500,000 in debt, still go into 3 or 4 years of residency, not see my family probably any more than I'm seeing them now. And when I do, I'm coming off a 12 or 14 or 16-hour shift and exhausted. And it just became very clear at that point. I was like, oh, I should probably do this other thing.
This is the smarter move.
Yeah. And so at that time, I didn't know that for every $500,000 contract, it's probably going to take $450,000 to fulfill it. But we still were doing awesome things at a high level. And then it continued to go up from there, a repeat business. That was really the birth of it all. And so it started as something else than me going to medical school and other things. And it just happened to be on a date night with some people. And I always say this, like, we accidentally started a business. And unfortunately, in the beginning, I treated it like I accidentally started a business. Yeah. And so really, after over 10 years of growing this thing and it taking lots of different paths and really helping people with their big ideas, but also like really niching down and helping people that are local business owners and plumbers and med spas and things that people rely on Google search, SEO, and ads. And again, it's taken so many turns, but as I look at this, I'm like, it's really only these last 2 years and these last 6 months that we're like, oh, we need to get radically clear ourselves for what we've done for other people and start doing that too. Because back to the philanthropic thing, I was just doing it to help people. And then our business kept growing and I'd hire more people, and then our revenue would go up, but our expenses would go up. So it's just this parallel line for so long. But I, until recently, didn't realize how few people in the world actually build 7-8-figure businesses that have been in business longer than 2 years or 5 years or longer.
Right.
And fast forward, it's something that I'd always said I would do it till it wasn't convenient. That was like 3 years probably past when I stayed.
Yeah.
But I wasn't disgruntled or frustrated or anything. I just kept getting busier and busier. My kids started getting older and older. And I realized that if I walk away right now, I'm 4 years away from a pension for the rest of my life. And that was like a big thing and some golden handcuffs in a lot of ways. But at the same time, I was like, but if I do that, I need to get my high 3. And for people who don't know how the fire department works, I'd have to work a bunch of overtime and promote and do all these things that I'm like, I don't have the capacity to do. My family doesn't have the capacity for me to be gone even more than I am. And I already felt like ships passing in the night to my family in a lot of ways. And I was like, my 7-year-old would be 17 by the time I did that, because it wasn't truly 4 years away. I do the drop and the other things, and I'm like, at that point, I might as well work as long as I want, because in some ways it doesn't matter in that regard. And so anyways, it was just a very clear decision. We can talk about how we got to that decision quickly, but it was something that there was an itch that I was like, hey, I think I want to do this thing and go help people. And that was in the medical industry. And then it just took a radical turn.
Date night changed your whole life.
Yeah. And we're still friends with that guy. Is now he went on to be like a senior director, a VP of Amazon.
Wow.
And then from there now he's a CEO of a company. That's really awesome. And I was just texting him last night. So it's cool to see you forget where you started, but we've been friends all along and done some cool. Now we're on a board of a nonprofit together and do some other cool things. So.
That's an amazing story. It's very interesting how you start on one venture and then something else lands in your lap and you're like, wow, this could be another really cool opportunity. I have a similar story. I was with the fire department and I think I was 7 to 10 years into it. I wasn't married. We didn't have kids. I was skating around, but I was looking for something else. As firemen, we work 10 days a month, so we have almost 20 days out of the month that we're twiddling our thumbs. And I'm the type of guy who be busy. I want to be continuing to grow and expand my knowledge. And I always loved investing. So I would go into the fire department and everyone would be watching their shows and I'd be on my phone looking at stocks and different things. And one day I was driving into work and I heard this advertisement. It was for online trading academy. And wow, this sounds really cool. I think I was a engineer at the time, so I was making decent money and didn't have any debt. I'm like, all right, I'm going to go and pay whatever, $5,000 to learn how to trade. And first day I went, I fell in love. I was like, man, this is super cool. This is fun looking at charts. And fast forward, that is a brutal job. It's a life that I don't know a lot of people would enjoy. It's up very early hours, looking at news. You're thrown off the heart palpitations, seeing the stock market go down. And I did that, but I got into the world of like foreign currency. And I actually linked up with a kind of a mentor, a gentleman in Mesa, and he was doing Forex for a long time. And I think it was Kate's parents who introduced me. And so, I drove over there one day and we started teaming up together. And the things that you probably see on TV with all the monitors and the stock trading, that's what we were doing in his house. We had a whole wall with monitors and we're putting trades in. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm like Wall Street. This is awesome. I made a lot of money. And I decided to do a pretty big investment with my brother on Tempe Town Lake. And it was like a 12-story condo. We bought the 2,000 square foot condo in 2006. It took 2 years to build. So fast forward 2008, we literally move in and the great financial crash happens, right? Everyone's losing hand over fist in the stock market. Real estate portfolios are just evaporating. And so my brother, he's working at like Bank of America. And I'm like, Robbie, what do we do? What do we do here? And he's, let's just sit tight. And we just kept seeing things just crumble. He was in charge of the short sale division. And he's, Ryan, I think we got to short sell this condo. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is like my life savings. I took some money from a loan from my fire department money to put down. And I think my parents helped me. And it was a shit show. It just was a shit show. So we let that go. And then Kate, my girlfriend at the time, which is actually, no, we just got married. And so she decided to buy a house in Scottsdale. And it was perfect. It was like McDowell and Scottsdale Road. It was so cheap. And I fell out of that condo. We moved into the Scottsdale house. But
her timing was smart.
Her timing was smart. Geez. If it wasn't for her, I don't know where I would be, honestly. But I always wanted to get back in. I took a pause. I was like, I'm taking a hiatus from investing. I don't want to do this. So a couple years went by and I'm like, gosh, I'm still passionate about that, investing. And so there was a financial advisor who is now managing my 457 401a money and Kate's parents' money. And so I went in there and I talked to him and just shared my story of what I was doing with the Forex back in the day. And he's like, why don't you come work for me and get your Series 7 and 66? And literally I studied for a year straight, Jesse, and I passed these tests.
That's a big test.
It's a massive test. And you just heard me say that I wasn't the sharpest kid in the classroom. And so it took a lot of time and energy. But I passed that test and worked for a few different companies and eventually started my own company. But where I was going with that is it's crazy, how you start one thing and then these ripples just happen and then you end up somewhere else. And it sounds like that's exactly what happened to you. That's exactly what happened to me. And it's amazing how similar our stories are. Coming from the fire department, you finding your niche, me finding my niche. And a lot of firefighters feel trapped and they're struggling, working their best threes and committing to that 25-year plan. It's a hard career. You can make a lot of moves if you have the courage and the conviction. And that's I think that's what I hear from you is just you had this conviction with wanting to do more for yourself, more for your family, become more and provide more, that you took a leap of faith and you eventually exited, right? You retired.
Yeah, so it'd be a good time to talk about that. There's a couple of things that I think really stood out. Number one was my wife and I on all of the journeys were aligned. Like I feel like had we not said, do we want to do this? Are we committing to it or not? Even the school thing, that was a big undertaking, especially with our kids being so little. We don't want to go off to some medical conference. I got pooped on, spit up on, everything. I'm glad you had a great time. Right. Thanks. And so we were aligned, and luckily, so I think there could have been a lot of bitterness and resentment. And I knew you shouldn't have done this or something. Like those are all paths that I'm thankful that we didn't have to go down, because those things drastically change things too.
100%.
And so without saying anything else, I would say, if you're like, oh, I got this itch and your spouse isn't aligned, then it's just a no. Like, one no is a collective canceling out. Like, it's just no matter how hard the yes is on the other stuff. And so that was a rule that we were fortunate that we adopted and picked up from another like experienced married couple that was kind of unofficially mentoring us. And like, there are no net zero wins or losses. And we had this analogy, just separate, taking a little side detour here. But the idea of, it's not like you can't, and this is still true today and a good reminder, but like in an argument, like in marriage, there isn't a winner and a loser. If one person is losing, if you're the one person's the catcher and one person's the pitcher, like one of you loses the game, you both lose the game. And so that's often something that's really just a hard thing in the moment to keep that perspective. But there's only win-wins or losses. And so if one of you is losing, then it's a loss for both of you. And we know that. You go to Sun Valley, but one of my favorite speakers, not just pastoral or anything, just great life lesson speaker as well. Chad and Robert, some of the things that they talk about, they'll just go through and just say some things like, you can be completely right and still dead wrong in the process.
Right, exactly.
And we all know what that feeling is like.
Yeah,
like,
100%.
oh, I was so right, but I was so wrong in how I went about it or addressed it or whatever.
Yep.
So anyways, with that, I think before anything, we were aligned the whole time. And I think that's the only reason why we got to where we are now. And sometimes it's not about marriage, and if you're single or something else, I think also thinking right away, like another mentor and friend of mine that's a successful entrepreneur talks about just like identifying who's on this journey with you. Because like before you get started, this is going to affect your friends different. It's going to affect your family, your parents. If you're dating, if you're not dating, then are you delaying dating to make this be your full-time like attention? And so those are all things that I really, really evaluated. And it wasn't like this big thing. But what I will say is getting back to this original thought of like when we decided to leave and make a jump and some other things is we actually did this workshop. And we've been doing this workshop for like high net worth individuals, people who have achieved some sort of success, and they were just entering this uncharted territory of defining what's next in their life. Some people felt like they just needed to define and discover what their purpose was. And we've done a lot of like stuff with discovering people's purpose and things like that. But it really just was boiled down to, what do I want to be known for at the end of my life?
Yeah.
And I don't usually tell people this, but one of the very first things in the workshop is you actually list out your like obituary or your eulogy, and you get 2 lines to talk about. So you have 1, maybe 2 lines at the most that says, oh, he was a great business person or a great financial person or a great firefighter or whatever. Like, but no one, again, you're not the one writing your own eulogy in real life. Yeah. Someone else is. And so no one's going to say, oh, he ran a great meeting. It's just, that's not what people say. So you get 1 line about some sort of status or title or something. And then the rest of the page has to be with this filter of these 2 things. Number 1, how do people feel when they were around you? Or sorry, number 1 actually was how available you were to people around you. And number 2 was how did they feel when they were around you? And there's a bunch of famous quotes out there. My favorite one is from Bob Goff, and he talks about people will rarely remember what you say, but they will always remember how you made them feel. Yeah. And so much is true in that. But also, as you're writing this workshop, you basically say, hey, you have to write an entire page around that lens of those 2 things. And so I started writing all these things that I want to be known for and how available I wanted to be for people. And then also how I wanted them to feel. So one of my things I'll just share as an example is I wanted people to feel like Jesse, no matter how busy he was, he would stop and make you feel like you're the most important person in the room and make you feel like he has nothing else on his plate. And so that's been a good reset for me as I've been getting busier. I was like, oh, shoot, I don't have time when I'm getting coffee to say hi to people in a way that's, oh, sorry, I got to go to this next meeting, see it. Yeah. And so it's a good reminder of those things. But also one of the other ones was I want for my kids and my family, like Jesse never ceased to make an adventure out of anything. And also a good perspective when I'm tired and had meetings or whatever, like, how are we going to do this? And one thing I'll give you an example is we went to the convenience store in our neighborhood. I always joke it's like a day club for adults and families because they have like loud music playing.
Yeah, I've been there. It's
an
sweet.
awesome convenience store.
Yeah.
They have like pizza and ice cream and burritos and breakfast tacos.
Is that the one on here?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
And so it's an awesome place. And our kids love going there, and we'll take the golf cart down there or something,
Yeah.
and they'll bring friends. I'm like, okay, I'm only going there if you guys can each get one thing, but there's sales tax on some stuff and there's not sales tax on other things, and you don't know what that is. And I don't know what that is. And I was like, but the person that's closest to $5 gets to pick a treat for everybody.
Wow.
And no one can complain. And so I didn't even go with them.
Yeah.
And my wife was like, oh my gosh, that was the most fun that we've all had. Cool. The cashier roped in and people around us roped in. And so it was just those things. I was like, oh, I want to, they're good reminders. And so all that to say, Eulogy talks about what you want to be known for at the end of your life. And then it says, okay, if those things are going to be true, then in 10 years, what things have to have already have happened, in order for those things to be true. But you get this tiny little like 1 inch by 1 inch box where you can fill in 4 to 5 bullet points of I am statements like I'm working out 3 times a week or whatever. And so you get these goals in 10 years that have to be true, and you get a little box for business. Oh, that's not enough for my business goals, so got to make them count. And then you get a little box for family. And then you get one for your health, and then one for friends, which nobody I know has a goal box for their friends. And then spiritual, like how are you taking care of yourself?
Yeah.
And anyways, with all of this, I do this and I write down some things in each category, and then I do the same thing for 5 years and the same thing for 1 year. But at the end of the 1 year, it says, what are the top 10 things that have to happen or get started this year in order for these things to be true? And most people just start filling it out and all their business goals to help them do those things. But you don't get that 2 from every of those 5 categories that have to go on this list. So now you're forced to move things forward with friends. So one of the things for Courtney and I was like, we want to better marriages around us. That was just one of our goals. And so we're like, what are we going to do? So it's not meant to be a couples thing, and it still is not. We started taking people to the School of Whimsy with Bob Goff and Disneyland. We're like, we're taking as many adults as possible to Tom Sawyer Island and Disneyland, and with Bob Goff, who's an author, and just like full of fun and whimsy and being available and saying yes to things. And so anyway, so we're like, we're doing it. And so now it's our 3rd year doing that. We're going to Maui's for a couple retreat with him this December. And since then, we've taken people on retreats and workshops. We've done stuff in our neighborhood. We've had people over. And a lot of times, and again, I don't know about you, but this is a really roundabout way to get where we're going. But it's just putting the things in perspective in life that matter to the forefront. And I'll get to why I left the fire department in this workshop. But for that, we were also like, man, there's so many times that we feel like we're so generous and inviting people in and orchestrating all these things. And we feel like we're the outcast at our own party in a lot of ways, even though we know people said yes because they're like, oh, if Jesse and Courtney did this, then we're in. Whatever, it's going to be good. It's going to be fun. It's going to whatever. But the reality is we've all felt like that. It's probably why, like, for every birthday known to mankind, people have been, like, depressed on their birthday because of some mismet expectation of, I don't know what I want, or I don't know what I should have, or it's my birthday. Why are the kids fighting? Or like, I just had a birthday. I was like, I just wanted to go to bed early. And we had sports till 9:30 at night. And so anyways, but like with that, I just think that back to like just expectations and other things like that, when I was looking at this total lens, I was like, man, like I just want to be the person that I would want like pursuing us as friends, as couples, as whatever. And I was like we got to start being intentional about that. And so we created our list, and we're just going through this again right now and talked about it a couple days ago on a walk. You know what? We're just going to start. We're going to get back to our regular date nights on a certain night and just say, okay, we're going to make a list. We got so many days left before summer and people leave. We're like, all right, we're going to do a date night. You pick your Wednesday or whatever the day is. And so it's those things that we're like, okay, we're going to go and pursue these people, because we all have people that are like, hey, we'd love to hang out. We'd love to hang out. And then we're like going after the people that are not saying that. And we're like, what am I doing? These people want to hang out. We love them.
Yes.
All of this to get back to why we left was these things started coming into focus with incredible clarity of what we wanted to be known for in our life, both individually together. You don't do this workshop together. You just do it at the same time, but silently.
And this is at the church?
We do this for our business.
Okay.
And we just do it for entrepreneurs looking for clarity.
Interesting.
And so I went to my parents, said, hey, take the kids. We had just redone our backyard. Let's just have our own little resort day in our backyard. And we did this workshop, and Courtney and I got to a moment, like most marriage stories, we have a different account of how it went down. But we got to the point where we got to that 1 year part and the top 10 things that need to happen. And both of us, without talking about it, had the very first thing was quit the fire department.
Wow.
And we really hadn't talked a whole lot about it before that. And the determining factor was, and then once I did that, I still had to work through some other things. I already got mine. She went on the treadmill outside and was like, just tell me when you're done. I already know where we're going, but you just tell me when you're ready and we'll talk about it. So she's like running and she like stops the treadmill, stops listening to whatever she was listening to. And she was just like, hey, just write the freaking letter. Write your resignation letter. I'm not going to turn it in. Just give it to me. We'll put it in the safe. Whatever the thing is, just write the freaking letter so that you can get out of your head about this and we can move on and just go. And so from that moment, I was like, all right, I'll write the letter. So I started writing the letter. And before I talk about what's next, back to the radical clarity is at first with our business and otherwise, we had all of these things that seemed like these awesome opportunities. I was telling you about this the other day where everything seemed like an opportunity. And we did have some really cool opportunities until we knew where we wanted to go. Once we knew where we wanted to go, now all of these things over here in the other direction were just distractions. They weren't opportunities at all. And so I viewed it as one more day at the fire station was a step in the wrong direction. And granted, I always talk about this sounds harsh, but I'll just preface this part of the story. My crew had just gotten separated, both from like rebids and just some other things. We had been together for 13 of my 15 years there.
So you guys were tight.
And so we were really tight, but we had just got split up like days before this. And it really didn't have a factor in any of this. However, once I had that clarity, I was like, I can't step foot back in that fire station because it's a step in the wrong direction. And it was funny because like people were like, dude, you dead? Like you're, because I went on my 4 days off and
you just never came back.
Everything's hanging there and my locker and my cubbies in my room and everything is, it's just all there. And so I started burning down some time because I was like, you know what? I don't want to do a big cash out of sick and vacation and other things. Like I'd rather just drain it down. Yeah. So I started doing that. And like all good firehouse stories, I also started a rumor about myself. And there was this guy, Chad, who is awesome. He was a younger guy at the time, but been on a long time too. But he was a young captain, I should say, not a younger guy, but a young captain. And so I was like, I need someone that is blameless and has a timeline. And he had talked about coming to our station. I don't think it's a bid, but I think he was going to get placed there or something. We were figuring out some stuff. You know, I was like, this is perfect. I'm like, hey, if this guy comes to our fire station, I'm quitting. And so for months, I was saying, if this guy comes to our fire station, I'm quitting. I still to this day don't know what he was thinking, but I know it's like, are you serious, man? I didn't mean to give him a complex about it in the beginning. But even I had the training captains and the chiefs, hey, you have to come to this mandatory thing. And you have to come to this training. So I did show up to that, even though it's cool. You got to come. And they're like, but they talked to me ahead of time. They're like, hey, we're going to ask you in front of 50 people. Hey, we heard this rumor. Is it true? And you just take it wherever you want. So great. He was there and I was like, hey, you come to my station and we'll see. I'm going to quit. And so anyways, all this to say full circle, he came to my retirement party and some other stuff. But
that's awesome.
But it was just, I just needed something. One, to shift the focus, but two, no one had ever really left except for going to other departments for a good reason. And so fast forward, I burnt down my time. I talked to the chiefs, put in my 2 weeks, and they actually were really helpful in how to navigate that because there are some policies and some other things that I wanted to make sure I was following and be in good standing. And it wasn't like a plan B, but I wanted to do it respectfully because
reputation is everything.
Yeah. And how you exit something is how you go into the next thing.
100%. Yeah.
And so anyways, so with all of that, it was the chiefs were actually really helpful and been on some stuff too. And
that's great.
And so I literally never went back. And I didn't mean to do this, but one day I was just driving by. My station was unique in that the bay door doesn't automatically close. So they must have a rover or something in there. So it was open and no one's there. I was like, oh, I'll go shut it. And I've done it a dozen times or so over the years. And so I go in and shut the door. I'm like, you know what? I'm here. I had already quit at this point, but my stuff was still there. They're like, hey, come get your stuff, bro. And so I grabbed 2 trash bags. One of the stuff I was keeping, one of the stuff I was throwing away. I loaded them both up. The truck was out and gone and never saw anybody. And I threw one in the dumpster on the way out and took one home, and I didn't unpack it until 2 years later. Oh. So anyway, so with all of this though, the point of so much of this comes down to a couple things. Number one, we're like the big idea Sherpas. Like we just make big ideas happen. We provide some radical clarity where it's needed. And it wasn't until I found clarity that I was like, oh, this is what it looks like. And once you find that, Like literally, like it's not clarity unless you're at the point of nothing else matters. Now, I will say, and this was like almost like a parenting aha moment that I had in the last year or so for someone else's kids in a situation they were going through. And they were trying to achieve clarity and they wanted to meet with me. And I'm like thinking in my head, I have no idea how I'm going to help you in this situation, but they wanted just to talk through it. We were talking through it, and they had this really big life decision for their high schooler and soon to be college student. Mm-hmm. And I was like, you know what? I don't think there is a wrong decision here. I think it's more important at this point that you just teach your kids how you're making these decisions and invite them into that journey and what things you're weighing. Because either way, like for sure there is a wrong decision looking past of, oh, I'm glad we didn't do that. But going forward, like neither of the options were bad options. It was very much situational. And so anyways, back applying that to myself, I was like, if you're in a position where you're like, oh, I just don't have clarity. I don't know what to do. Or God, give me a sign or something. I truly believe that God is just do something. Like one of my other favorite Bob Goff quotes, he always says, fail trying, don't fail watching. And so I don't believe that there's going to be this audible, you should quit the fire department.
Yeah, it's I struggle with that too, Jesse. Is I hear this inner voice saying, hey, you should go. And then there's all these other voices that are saying, no, stay. And I think I need to go through that program. I need to get vision on what I want. But for me, it's like I'm so close. I have a year left. I think it was like March 28th was literally like 1 year. And I did the 3-year best 3 and the 5-year drop. And there's this golden nugget right there. And it's just dangling. And it's just everyone's, oh, you're crazy. And it grows every day by 7%. But is it making me happy? I feel like what you said is every day that I go, it's like a step back. And we've had some really good conversations lately. And you showed me a picture and it was this quote and it was like, if we're not, help me out with this.
Yeah, I'll try to do my best. I didn't bring my phone in here, but it's a Irma Bombeck quote. So you look it up, but it basically says like, when I stand at the end of my life before God, I want to say that I've used everything that you gave me and I used everything you gave me. And I think there's a lot of resonation. I keep talking about why that stood out to you, but I do feel like there's so much left on the table.
Yeah.
And some of those distractions take from that in some ways.
Yeah. And my mom passed away last year. And then I was in this really tough time. I was trying to figure out like who I was, what I wanted to do, how I was going to be without my mom. And so this last year and a half has just been this, almost this aha period of, am I living the fullest life that I could live? Am I using all the talents that he's given me? And I used to be so ambitious, like crazy ambitious. You'd put something in front of me and I'm gonna knock it down. And what I found as I got older is the ambition's still there, but it's like I have other things that I got to think about before I just go and knock something down, right? I have family and now a business. And so I'm trying to prioritize what I want to use my energy towards and what I want to use my talents for. And I think the biggest realization I had is almost, it was talking to you, is like, I want to share my story. I want to share where I've come from, my journey. And it's so important. Every journey is important. Everybody's path in life is an incredible journey and path that they should be proud of. And at times I'm like, I'm not really proud of this moment or this moment, but that's what makes us.
And that's what trends on social media.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the good stuff, right? The juicy stuff. And I got a lot of that, Jesse. I got a lot of juicy stuff. But the biggest thing for me is
that's the next podcast. That's
the next one, right? I got to bring you back on. But it's about leaning into higher power, connecting with truly like who I am spiritually and grounding myself with my family and using my talents for the better. Sometimes I would use my talents and people would get hurt. That's not good. I used to be a pretty good fighter, Jesse, and a good wrestler. And I don't want to hurt people. I want to help people. And so now
it comes in handy in a pinch.
Right? If we go out, I got your back, dude. But it's coming out with this podcast. And we've been talking a lot of this Larz brand and showcasing who I am a little bit more. And I think there's some really good opportunities between you and I of where we can take not just this brand that I'm trying to create, your brand, because the message is so powerful and it connects so well. And we've talked just before this podcast about some really cool ideas and opportunities. And I definitely hope some things come to fruition, because in this life, I want to have good people around me. I want my family to be around good people and have a good community. And it sounds like from what you shared that you are trying your best at finding those people who are going to make you the best version of yourself. And yeah, hopefully we could continue to nurture this relationship and make each other better at the end of the day. That's my goals.
No, likewise. And it doesn't come by accident, I guess I'm trying to say. And it comes at a cost. It's not always financially, but it's got to be intentional. And unfortunately, like, great relationships take work. And then on top of that, they take planning, and we're all busy and kids and like all these things. And now I'm entering a season of where we had sports like every night, and sometimes till 9:30. I'm like, I don't want my 10-year-old going to bed at 9:30 or eating dinner at 9:30. And it does come at a cost and require work.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's something that if I could leave people with one thing, both from the workshop and how we did that, like, that's something that you don't pay me to do it. Like, people can just go do some version of that, because it will cause you to, like, so many people think about, I just don't know what's next and what the thing is. But what this does is it gives you a checklist and a filter of saying, here's just who I want to be as a person, and family and friends and all those things. And, does it, when something comes up, is this on the way to that, or is it not? And so it makes these like really hard. I joked before this for one of the things we were talking about of opportunities of, man, I almost stopped you before you said those words, because in my mind, I'm like, hey, we are not doing anything that's not in like our one silo, at least for this foreseeable near future while we're focusing on this. And the thing that you asked me about was like right in our silo. We're
Bam,
like, okay, wait a minute.
that.
And so it's those things where it was this easy mental decision. This is, we're talking about a massive amount, because it's exactly what we're working towards and where we're headed. But before, if I hadn't done that, I wouldn't know.
Yeah.
Because again, staying at the fire department, working both jobs, still could have massively benefited me in so many ways. But it also could have cost me much more than I was willing to pay with friends and family and things like that.
You just mentioned it takes time and effort into these relationships. And I was just having this conversation with Kate the other night, and we live in a fairly new community, and there's a lot of great people out in this neighborhood. And what I found, I kind of self-reflect of, could I have done better in certain situations, or could I have done this? And one of the things that I was like self-reflecting on is, I wish I would have put myself out there more at the beginning, because now you have a lot of individuals in this community. They are acquainted with each other. And I've just been so tunnel visioned on raising a family, creating a good business, paying bills, all that stuff. And I haven't focused on what really matters. And that's the community, friends, family. And so I told this to Kay. I said, I wish I could go back, rewind the hands of time, and just refocus on allowing people to come in our life that's going to help us mentally, spiritually continue to grow. And now what I'm doing is I'm shifting, right? I'm not just staying complacent. I'm like, actually now I'm inviting people over. I'm taking the step that I didn't take at first, but now I'm doing something about it. Most people just are like, oh gosh, the time has passed and that's too bad. No, it's like there's always time to make room for people who matter in your life.
Something I'll leave you and everybody else with is something that also is a game changer as part of this workshop that I don't usually talk about, but we've been talking a lot about it recently, is that there's a really short period of this workshop that doesn't honestly focus on it enough, but it says, who are your six? And a lot of people think of like military, oh, I got your back, I got your six. But that's not it. He like brings it to a place where he says, who is your six in that? Who's going to be carrying your casket one day? And who would be those people today? And if you don't know who they are, who are you going to start like finding them and get a serious quest going to figure out who those people are? And it was actually like, at first it was depressing because I was like, man, I have a ton of friends, but like maybe 2 people might make that list right now.
Interesting.
And the reason why he talks about it is he says, today, treat those people differently. When they call, answer. Walk out of a meeting, walk out of whatever. hey, what's up? Oh, like I just wanted to make sure that's available. Like if something's going bad, drop everything and go over and bring something over or whatever. Yeah. And so I had two people that had been a good model of that kind of during when I was going through this. And now I'd say that list is getting pretty full, which I'm like, I honestly didn't think it would in that amount of time, but because I've been intentional about it. But one of my friends who's very tall, I was like, I'm going to need more than 6 because I'm pretty tall. I'm going to have a big casket. But he's like, hey, you're one of my 6.
Oh, that's awesome.
And so it was just really cool to hear that.
Heck
and
yeah.
He didn't have to say that. Like he had a bad meeting or a bad day at work or something happened. And I didn't tell him, but I hadn't really been drinking. He showed up with beer or bourbon and something else, was like, hey, let's just talk, like whatever. And like he has 4 kids, and both him and his wife work and everything. And it just showed that it did not matter. Yeah. And so what I'll say, and this is back to what I would leave with, is keeping that perspective of, treat those people different, pick up the phone when they call or text or whatever. But also, I think a good starting point is not trying to figure out what you want in life, because that's changing and fleeting and also sometimes just debilitating and paralyzing, but more so think of, man, like it's not about what mountain I'm going to conquer, but who do I want to do it with? Because none of us want to get there alone.
No. Yeah. So. And business is a very lonely road. Just seeing you and having the opportunity to talk to you in the office, it's just been so rewarding, and you're an inspiration to me just because of your journey. I'm living in your shoes and I know what you've been through.
And not a lot of people do.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy. But where can people find you, Jesse?
I'm not on social media, which we've talked about. I haven't been for like 10 years, so that makes it tough. I would say clearlyrelevant.com has a link to free discovery session, things like that, and that can get on a calendar to reach out or things like that. It's funny, I'm trying to be more available, but there's not a whole lot of ways to get a hold of me. But that's one place people can find me. And then the other thing, I just thought of this, and I felt like it was really important for somebody, but whether it's a fire department or not, a lot of people say, dude, what did you do? What numbers did you crunch? All of those things. And I did crunch all the numbers. But at the end of the day, it wasn't a financial decision. I wasn't making so much money in my other business that I was like, oh, it doesn't even make sense to stay here anymore. It was where I'm headed, my family priorities, all those things. I realized I couldn't stay any longer and compromise those things. I knew that I would figure it out. So with that, trying to be more available, but people can find us at Clearly Relevant.
And what do you guys specialize in at Clearly Relevant?
We have a couple silos. One is the big idea stuff. So we do like website, branding, marketing, messaging, things like that. And then our other silo is for established businesses where they have a budget for ads, SEO, email marketing, text, things like that.
Very cool. Very cool. Yeah, I'm sure there's a lot of listeners who are going to hear this. And if they're government employee, firefighter, police officer, that's probably going to be on their mind. Oh, I want to do this. How did you manage to go from here to here? And you're right. Sometimes it's not financial. It's all, is this the journey that you want to be on? But man, you had some great nuggets in that and some of the questions that I asked you, Jesse. I truly appreciate you coming over to the house, hanging out, talking to me. And once again, man, hopefully I can earn a seat at the one of the 6. Yeah. We'll see how that goes. But hey, thank you guys so much for tuning in with the Lounge with Larz podcast. And go out and check out Jesse's website, get on his calendar, sign up for any sessions that he has on there that he can help out with. Thank you guys for listening, and we'll get you next time.
Yeah.
See ya.
Thank you.